Preview.
What are some of the common traits of a transaction that fails that you've seen? Any common threads that have like just caused transactions to go sideways? What are some common ones?
Generally, this might be an easy answer, an obvious answer is, after we get done with our sell side quality of earnings report, the monthly numbers either just are stable or maybe start decreasing. And what I mean by that is maybe revenue starts dropping or profitability starts or EBITDA starts dropping post quality of earnings report. That to me is probably the number one reason I see when deals fail is because company's just not consistent. Perhaps it's a cyclical industry, like perhaps oil and gas, automotive industry, or another type of industry where it's cyclical and the numbers just aren't there and they don't hold up. So that's probably the most common reason I see.
Yeah, I agree. And this is like no one cares really if your last set of audited statements from last year had record earnings, if your most recent year-to-date results are going downhill.
Yeah.
So like that, and so it's always best to be in market with wind in your sails and keep it in your sails through the process.
That's a great point about why to do a trailing 12 months cutoff for a sell side or even a buy side, right? If FY23 results, assuming they're 12/31 year end, were terrific, but the company keeps growing, right, on a monthly basis, year over year growth in revenue and in EBITDA. That's again going to maximize the selling price for our client. So it's always good to have, as recent trailing 12-month cutoff as you possibly can get from the client.
A couple other things I'll add in here. I think it all revolves around the teams that you have that you're working with. So you got to have clear expectations between all the parties. Sometimes if you have a letter of intent that's not clearly defined or is overly vague, as we've talked about in the past here, as those things come to light and get further refined, they can cause problems. So if things like working capital and debt-like items aren't defined clearly on, and they end up being material to a transaction, they can absolutely cause the deal to fall apart. The other thing I'd say that is important is making sure that you have an attorney that is a experienced transaction attorney. A lot of times we have worked on deals where we may have one side of the table has that sophisticated transaction attorney and the other side doesn't, and it can really slow things down. And in the worst case scenarios, the deal doesn't happen.
Yeah, and I'd say another perspective on the LOI is sometimes I'm seeing very aggressive timelines being set around closing, 1 month or 2 month timelines. And that sets the expectations for the seller that the deal is going to close quickly. And when it doesn't, obviously there's fatigue and frustration. So clearly, given the complexity of a lot of deals, they're going to take anywhere from 90 days to even up to 6 months. So kind of establishing in the beginning of the process a reasonable timeline. And another thing I'd also say is also on the lending side, given the challenges in the lending market, just realizing if lending's involved and there's a financing component that, that will take time to get established, and the seller should understand that, there's going to be that process. There could be reps and warranties. There could be things and other gating issues that could cause the timeline to move, and just being flexible with that process and just, both sides being candid with each other around where they are in the process and when they think they can ultimately close, and not setting unreasonable expectations that continue to get moved every month.
Yeah, Dan, you bring up a good point about reps and warranty, actually, insurance, right? Where They always want to see a quality of earnings report, buy side and sell side. And, they need to check their boxes internally. So that does take a little bit more time to line up, or to line up and get that reps and warranty insurance.
Yeah, I agree. And I think also, in general, too, you have to have trust on both sides of the fence for the transaction to close. And so I think as a seller, doing the proper homework, if you will, and doing some of the heavy lifting on your side, it's almost a good faith effort. There's an intangible value associated with, you care about the process, you want to see it close, you want to raise that confidence index, and that's why you brought in some help to get further support on the numbers, as well as, so as an operator, owner operator, you can also focus on your business, which is probably the most critical thing, so that earnings don't tank while you're in market. You've got to, that is your important job, is to make sure that the business is running. So all really good points.